welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for Eat Healthy on a Budget. We're very excited to host Vel Scott from the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. She's going to give us a lot of great information tonight. And let me just share her PowerPoint and then I will hand it over to her. All right, all over to you, Vel.
Thank you, Megan. Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? As you can see, I'm already holiday ready. I have on my red, my bright colors. I love colors anyway. So I thought this would be so apropos to have on this evening as we talked about healthy living and healthy eating, because it actually starts with how we feel about ourselves, how we look, and how we carry ourselves. So I'm full of energy. I've been traveling. I took a Whole Foods plant-based course in Tucson, Arizona a couple of weeks ago, and I'm all still re-energized from that. So I'm happy to be with you this evening to talk about eating healthy on a budget. Well, we're going to talk about eating healthy, but that does not mean that we're going to sacrifice taste or that we're going to sacrifice any flavors at all. That means that we're just going to save money so that we can do some of the other things that you like to do, like travel, buy things for your garden during the summer or spring, and just have the freedom to not take all of our resources for food, but yet have a great shopping experience. So I'm going to share some shopping tips with you this afternoon. I love to shop for food. I know it's always said that it's better if you go to the store maybe once a week or once a month. But because I guess I have transportation and I'm close to a local market, I shop at least a couple of times a week, because when I go in, I actually check my cabinets to find out what is it that I need. And then I'm able to check the price list. Usually I'm near a Heinen's grocery store, a family-owned grocery store. I don't know how many, if there's one in Mentor. I know there's one in Chagrin Falls and Bainbridge. But I go there a lot. And there's a Dave's, a family market. I try and stay with family-owned grocery stores for several reasons, because the food is the vegetables are usually fresh, and there's always someone there that can answer questions about anything that I want to know. So, shopping tips. One of the things that I do, as I said, is I check my cupboards and refrigerator before I go shopping. And I always make sure that I shop on a full stomach. Now, if I don't do that, then I'll go in like probably maybe some of you do and just buy things on a whim. And that's where the extra money comes in. So make a list and stick to it. By making a list, you really save money because you get what you actually go in there for. And the other thing is, many times there are sales, 2 for 1. Is it really a sale for you if you're not going to use the extra item that you buy? I find, especially during the summer and spring, when there are maybe 2 for 1s, I'm plant-based, so I don't eat meat. But if there's 2 for 1 with peppers, with onions, the things that I can't get from the garden, instead of maybe getting the 2 for 1, I have a neighbor that sometimes I'll split things with. She's also a single household. So if there are peppers that I know that I'm not going to use before the growing season comes in, then I'll buy the peppers and she and I will share them. Shop the sales. The sales are always wonderful, again, if it's something that you are going to use. And buying generic is a wonderful way to shop. There's so many generic products. I know the stores that I go to, the Heinen's and sometimes the Aldi's, Save-A-Lots, they have their own brand. And I don't know if you can see this or not, probably not now, but I have a can of chickpeas that I saw in one of the major stores when I went to Save-A-Lot. I read labels a lot, so I saw where the same ingredients, but it was like maybe 30-40 cents less. It was $1.19 at my major store. It was 99 cents when I went to the Save-A-Lot to get. So buying generic is a wonderful way to save money. Buy frozen. Well, many people say when you buy frozen that you're buying food that's not as fresh as it should be. But I don't find that to be true. The frozen food many times is more nutritious, it's better than the canned food because it's frozen at its peak. And when you take it home and unthaw it and cook it, like green beans, broccoli, you still get that bright, vibrant green color. So buy frozen sage. Now that's where the 2-for-1 many times, again, when vegetables are out of season from my garden, I do buy the frozen broccoli, florets. I buy peas and beans frozen because that's a good way. And then I don't have to worry about them going bad on me. So buying frozen goods is really a good way to save money, especially the out of season things, the berries, blueberries. I eat blueberries every morning for breakfast with my sugarless yogurt. So I make sure that when the blueberries that are frozen are on sale, that I buy those. And I think I've already mentioned, don't shop hungry. The worst thing in the world you could do is to shop hungry and then go out buy all of these things. When you get home, well, I didn't really need this, or I could have chopped cheaper by not buying all the things that I got because I was hungry. So don't shop hungry. Always go shopping on a full stomach. Buy in bulk. If you are a one-person household or two persons in your household or family, it's nice. You can save money per serving. Bulk sections have ingredients like the spices, the nut butters, the maple syrup, the grains. And speaking of grains, I buy barley actually in bulk. I buy quinoa in bulk because that's something that I don't have to make an all the time trip to the store with. So buying your grains is a good thing to do with bulk buying. And you know why we avoid the middle of the store? Because that's where some people say the good stuff is, but it's where your sugary cereal is. It's where a lot of these sometimes processed food is. Shopping the perimeter of the store, and I found this true with most stores around the country, that when you go in along the perimeters, the first thing you see when you go in to your right usually is the produce section. So when you shop the produce, you're going to get your fruits, your apples, your oranges. You're going to get your fresh greens, your celery, your peppers, your cabbage, your herbs, everything around the perimeter. Avoid the middle of the store. Fresh meats and whole grains, they tend to cost less than processed, prepackaged foods and have much more nutritional value. We've already hit don't shop hungry, so we can go to if there's a number 8. Avoid convenient stores when possible. I have a saying that when I want gas, I go to the gas station. When I want food, I go to the grocery store. So avoiding convenient stores, many times within the last, I'd say maybe 5 to 10 years, that I've noticed more convenience stores are selling food. Well, I don't want to buy my food where I buy my gas from. So be careful about shopping the convenience stores, especially for perishable food. Shop in season. Produce is almost always cheaper when it is in season. Living in the Midwest here, we don't have that option to have fresh produce all year long. But again, some of the family-owned stores and your Aldi's and your Save-A-Lots and stores of that nature, you can find some seasonal fruit that comes from Florida, that comes from California. You're going to pay a little bit more money for it, but it's best to shop seasonally, to eat seasonally. That way you definitely save more money. Vegetarian and meatless options. Vegan, vegetarian, flexitarian. There's so many names now when it comes to eating healthy. Meat and animal products are some of the most expensive items that you can buy. Foods like the beans, tofu, yogurt, peanut butter, your grains, are great sources of protein, and they cost so much less than meat. For example, I baked a sweet potato tonight. I baked 2 large sweet potatoes. I'll let them cool, then I'll slice them and I'll wrap them in separate saran wrap. I'll put them in the refrigerator. And in the mornings when I get up, sometimes I want a savory breakfast. So I will saute cabbage, greens or green beans or something that I have left over from the following night, and I'll add a sweet potato to it. So that gives me a plant-based, very nutritional breakfast. So adding a vegetarian meatless option is a wonderful thing to do. The other thing too is when you cook, if you cook batch cooking, let's just say that you are gonna go meatless. You may start off 1 day a week, then you may decide to go to 2 days a week, but it's really a wonderful way to eat if you can train yourself to do without the animal protein, which we can get all of the nutrition that we need from our plants, from our greens, from our beans. And it isn't necessary unless you just want to add a meat protein. And I might add that if you do a meat protein, that you should get the very best cut of meat and the freshest that you can buy. And that means for me, making friends with your baker, with your butcher where you live. Again, I keep saying that I go to these family-owned grocery stores, but I also go to a Save-A-Lot that's near me that has wonderful products. And during the summer, I went in, we didn't have a large crop of greens this year in our garden like we usually have. So I asked to meet the produce manager. The produce manager came out, he was very friendly. He said we get our greens in on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Those are when the trucks come in like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I can go to a Save-A-Lot and I can know that maybe during the middle of the week, the greens have been there for a couple of days. But if a truck comes in Saturday morning and I'm there bright and early, then that's when I can get my greens and my lettuce. So it's really to your advantage and important that you make friends with your produce person, and also if you're a meat eater, with your butcher to find out when does the fresh seafood comes in. It comes in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I noticed a neighbor of mine wanted me to get her some shrimp a couple of days ago, but it was the day after Thanksgiving. And I said, are you sure you want me to get the shrimp today? So she said, oh yes, I've got to have them. So when I went in, I asked the question I already knew the answer to, when does your seafood come in? Did you get a shipment of seafood Friday? And the gentleman from the meat department said, he smiled at me and he said, well, if I told you yes, you know that I wouldn't be telling you the truth. And he said, no, it won't come in until Saturday. So I didn't buy her the shrimp because I knew that they were there before the holidays, before Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving the store was closed. So why not wait another couple of days and get your fresh produce? So you want to be knowledgeable. You want to meet these key people, your produce people, and the people that also are in your meat department. And then add a 1-day meatless day. Inexpensive food options. Healthy foods under $1 per serving. It's interesting that I'd already mentioned oats. Steel cut oats is a wonderful product to have. Whole grain pasta, brown rice, barley. I have in my hand a medium Quaker, medium barley. It's heart healthy, it says. And what I like about it is that there's 0.5 grams of fat. There's no trans fat. There's no cholesterol, and there's no sodium in it. So 1/4 of a cup is 170 calories. So you could make your meal a breakfast around, and grains are not just for lunch or supper. You can have them for breakfast. You can have your barley with fruit, with a plant-based rice. You can also use yogurt, non-fat, unsweetened yogurt, also cornmeal, grits. I'm a Southern girl. I'm from Mississippi. So I love grits. So what I'll do if I have grits left over, I'll let them cool. I'll make them into patties. Then I'll chop up fresh herbs, onions, peppers, dry herbs, and make patties out of them.
Hmm.
Freeze them, put them in the freezer. And on a morning when I decide I want to have grits and I want to have saute some peppers and onions and grits, that's my breakfast, and a yogurt, fat, protein, a yogurt. So that's a wonderful thing to have. The vegetables under $1 per serving, your kale, potatoes, romaine lettuce. The thing that I am never, ever without in my refrigerator is cabbage. I keep a large head of organic cabbage, white and red, in my refrigerator at all times. Cabbage for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Cabbage is my standby. It's my favorite vegetable. So I have a lot of cabbage, carrots, cucumbers, and you can make a meal. You can have cabbage sauteed for breakfast. You can have it as a coleslaw for lunch. You can steam it. You can actually take the large leaves and blanch them, dipping them in boiling water, taking them out of the boiling water, and then putting them in a cold bath. That way it retains the color and stops the cooking. And you can put these in your refrigerator. And let's just say you have some grains left over. You have some pinto beans, you have some rice that you've had a couple of days ago. You can take that filling and wrap it in these cabbage leaves, put a tomato sauce on them, over them, put them in the oven and bake them. Add you some fruit and you have a meal. Or you could take that cabbage and also make a cabbage soup. So vegetables are a wonderful thing to have, and they're inexpensive, but very fulfilling. Fruits, apples, bananas, watermelons, oranges, grapes. I don't know how many of you freeze your grapes, but that has been my go-to dessert. I've cut out the cookies. I used to be the queen of cookies. If I didn't make them, I'd go to the store, and that was my vice. And I would read the labels, and I would see, well, this has 9 grams of sugar plus 7 more. Well, I can't get those. Well, I'm going to tell you what I did a couple of days ago after Thanksgiving. I'll have to confess to somebody. I bought these cookies, and it said there were like 3 grams of sugar. I said, that's great. And it was like 30 calories in 3 cookies. So I got the cookies, I brought them home. And the rest is history. By the time the next day arrived, I had eaten that whole packet. I just felt so bad. I didn't want to beat myself up. So I won't do that again. I haven't done that in maybe 6, 7, 8 months, maybe a year. But I said that to say that frozen grapes, I buy the large and I get them organic because I feel better buying them organic. And I take them and rinse them off and take the little stem off of them and freeze them. And in the evening, instead of having the cookies, I have the frozen grapes. And that's a wonderful thing to eat. The bananas, I also, when there's a sale on bananas, if you like smoothies, going back to your cabbage and your greens, you can take your frozen bananas, peel them, slice them up, put them in the freezer. And for a morning breakfast, you can also have you can even have I use red cabbage, bananas, my blueberries, and I don't use a plant-based milk, but I could if I wanted to. So I have distilled water in my kitchen. I use that and frozen ice cubes, put it in my Vitamix, and it's very fluffy, and it's a wonderful frozen drink that I can have in place of my yogurt and fruit, because sometimes I want to switch up. Apples. Also, one of the things that I do is once a week, I do a cleanse with my apples. I get the Gala apples. We have a farm, a garden, and we have 3, 4 large apple trees. So during the season, we have apples that I don't have to buy. This year, our apples were not as plentiful as they had been in past years. So through the food bank, I got some wonderful apples. So I have those apples in the refrigerator. I'll have my apples and water 3 or 4 times a day. And that helps to cleanse my body. That's just a personal thing that I do. If you don't want to do that, you could always have an apple for breakfast, your yogurt, your tea, and that kind of thing. Protein and dairy. Those of you who eat eggs, the extra large eggs, the hard boiled eggs, the peanut butter, the mixed nuts. Now, with nuts, because of the high fat content, you want to put a small amount in your hand, in the center of your hand, not the same size as your palm. That would be enough nuts for the whole year for you to eat. So you're going to take maybe a tablespoon or teaspoon and put some mixed nuts in your hand, and that can be a snack. Lentils is a wonderful thing to use with soup. The canned beans, as I said, I buy the garbanzo beans, also known as chickpeas. The Goya brand is a brand that I like because it has only 110 calories in it. I take and I rinse it, and it's about 3.5 servings per container. So a serving size is 1/2 cup. And you can use these in so many ways, your beans. Dried beans, I find when I cook the black beans, I don't know if you all have had this experience. If so, maybe some of you could share it with me, that the black beans seem to cook, I don't know, they seem to cook longer than I want to. They're softer. I like actually buying the black beans and rinsing them, plus it saves time, and then just saute them with peppers and onions. And I can always have them on hand. I do plant-based milk occasionally, and I do the non-fat yogurt. These are all things that can be interchanged throughout the day. All right, we've done our under $1 per serving. Reading labels. I hope that when you do go to the store that you do read the labels. Before I really started reading labels, I thought that the whole can, when it says that it's 110 calories per 110 calories, that meant that if I ate the whole can, it was 110 calories. Well, that does not mean that. It means per serving. So 1/2 cup is 110 calories. So if you want to watch your calories and watch your weight, make sure that you read the labels. And also reading the labels, how much cholesterol, is there any trans fat in there? Is there saturated fat? The labels, it's very important that you read the labels. And then when you get an item, it says the ingredients for the chickpeas are chickpeas, water, disodium, can't pronounce that, for color retention. And that's another thing too. If you get something and you're reading the labels and you can't recognize or pronounce any of the things on the labels, that's something that you shouldn't buy. It's also important that the first 2 or 3 items that are listed on the labels means that has the most of whatever you're going to find in it. And on the sample here, it tells us that the unit price can be found under product number to price tag. Sometimes buying larger items is not cheaper. And that's something that you want to actually look out for, not only for the sodium content and the sugar and salt, but just, are you getting the best buck for your money? And this gives you an example here of a low-fat yogurt. The unit price is 5 cents on one, 0.12 cents on the other. So label reading is very important for a number of reasons, health-wise and for your pocketbook also. And we talked about the ingredients. There are at least a dozen ingredients on here. So that would tell me, without having to go any further, that that is not an item that I want to buy. 1 or 2 items that I recognize or that I can pronounce. A good rule of thumb is to buy foods with 5 ingredients or less. Whole foods have more nutritional value than processed foods and may cost less per serving. So that's something you want to make sure that you look out for. Money saving tips. And these are things we covered in the beginning. Look at your refrigerator, your freezer, and your pantry before shopping. Plan your meals around foods you already have. This will save money and keep you from buying foods you already have. And that's something that has been very, very helpful for me in the last couple of years. That when I open my pantry, I have things organized in there. I have my bean products together. I have my grains together. I have my tomato sauces together. So when I look, I can see if I'm low on something. And that way, I keep a list on my refrigerator with a magic marker so I can write down as I use something, I can write that down before I go shopping. Reduce food waste. Learn how to store your food properly so it stays fresh the longest. When planning weekly meals, use the most perishable foods first. One of the things I find with my greens when I buy them from the store, when we can't get them from the garden, is that I buy collard greens a lot and I buy mustard greens a lot in addition to the cabbage. But what I do with the collard greens is I bring them home and I wipe them off with because I get organic and they're not real, soiled. So I wipe them off, then I take a damp paper towel and I wrap them in the paper towel and put them in a plastic bag. And I save plastic bags for if I have breads or anything that I have. I'm frugal, I save these, and I actually put the greens wrapped in the damp paper towel in my vegetable compartment in the refrigerator. And I can keep those for at least a week if I do it that way. So plan your meals around food you already have, learn how to reduce food waste and storing your food, and don't be afraid to use your freezer. One of the things I find when I do see red organic bell peppers, I love bell peppers, but once you freeze them, you have to either use them in a soup or a stew. So I try not to buy them in large quantities because I like them raw and I like them fresh. The freezer is not only a good place for leftovers, but also for fruits and vegetables. You can, as I mentioned, I freeze the grapes. I even freeze apples and pineapples because when I do a smoothie or a green drink with my greens, and yes, I do use cabbage and I do use mustard and turnip greens as a green in my drink. Try it, it's delicious. Fruit gives it the sweetness that you need, and you don't want to overpower it with spinach or with collard greens because the collards, they have a bite to them. So you want to make sure that you don't use them use in excess, but you can use a handful of collards, a handful of spinach. And you can also, if you've had a salad the night before and you don't eat it all, you can put it in your smoothie that next morning and it gives it a delicious taste with your ice and your frozen food. So don't be afraid to use your freezer. And when you take these things out and put them in for your smoothie, you have a wonderful breakfast or lunch or midnight snack. Money saving tips storing produce. The high humidity drawer, and that's really produce that wilts, the spinach, your lettuce, your strawberries, your raspberries, grapes, herbs, all of those things are things that you should put in this drawer. It's very important that you learn to use that in a practical way. The cool, dark, ventilated spaces, potatoes, eggplants, winter squash, onions, and garlic. And away from other produce, bananas, pears, stone fruits, and avocados. And it shows the picture here. And that's exactly what I do with my refrigerator. Of course, my bananas I freeze, so I don't have a problem with that. But I also freeze my pears. Again, we have a pear tree at our garden, an apple tree, and what else do we have? We have strawberries during the season. So during the season, I can freeze these things and have them whenever I want to. So make sure that you use your drawers properly and take advantage of them. in storing and buying your produce because it does make a difference. Budget and menu plan. I don't know how many of you actually do a food budget. I do one because it helps me to not spend an excess amount of money. I used to go in the store and just buy everything I thought I wanted and then ended up wasting a lot of it because I didn't eat it. It either would go bad or I just decided I didn't want it. So when you do a food budget, how much money you're going to spend on, if you're a 2-family, 3-family, if you have a husband, wife, or family, whatever it is, and children, then there's a certain amount of money that the U.S. Department of Agriculture suggests that you use. I've always based it on my family, the 4 of us, as to what will I need for the week and what will I need for the month. And it actually helps you to save money. I think a food budget is a good thing to have. Food budget resources. Need help? You're in the right place. The Greater Cleveland Food Bank, of which I'm a nutrition educator for, the SNAP help, the pantries, hot meals, produce distribution, and more. So the food bank is really a great place to actually get food from and to get resources from. They have some wonderful menus. I usually go out into the community, various communities, when the food truck comes, and I'll know a day ahead what they're going to have. So then I'm able to do a sample. For example, we had some wonderful baby carrots last week, and we did it at South Point Hospital. So we used the dried herbs, the oregano, thyme. They actually had some blueberries that they had frozen. So I was able to toss those in at the very end so that it didn't discolor the carrots. But everyone said it was a delicious snack. You know, you just take the carrots and roast them, put them in the oven. If you use oil, just a light amount of oil on your sheet pan. If you don't use oil, then just a little amount of water. You spray them. You turn them on 375 degrees, and it cooks for about 20 or 30 minutes, and they're soft and tender, crunchy, and absolutely delicious. So that's a food budget resources, a weekly menu example. It would be interesting to find out how many of you actually do a weekly meal plan. I didn't initially start off doing this, but I needed to drop some weight. So I decided to do a weekly plan. And that meant that I had to prep my food so that everything was prepped. My peppers, my onions, my beans, my grains were cooked in advance. And then what I did was take some bowls and some containers and prepackage from Monday through Friday. Now, Saturday was a fun day. Not that I just went all off, but I just would go back to one of the days, Monday or Tuesday, and just sort of mix and match. But if you have a 5-day, Monday through Friday, if you do a meal plan, there's always going to be a little something left over. Breakfast with oatmeal with frozen berries, a vegetable omelet, oatmeal with apples and peanut butter, potato hash, which could be sweet potatoes, oatmeal again with frozen berries. It's interesting here because this is beans and vegetable soup. Once you have the beans, you can always make a soup out of them. And another thing too is when you prepping your vegetables, your peppers and your onions and your carrots, don't throw the ends away. Put them in a bag or a bowl, put them in your refrigerator. And on a day that you have some time at home, make your vegetable stock out of it. You start with, say, 12 quarts of water and just the ends of your vegetables and bring it to a rolling boil, then reduce it. Instead of having the 12 ounces, you end up with 6 ounces, but it's a concentrated vegetable stock. Once it's strained and cooled, then put it in your refrigerator and you can have it for your soup. You can have it to saute instead of using oil. Beans and vegetable soup, fruit. You notice many of the things, like in a lot of restaurants you go to, you see this huge menu, but if you look at it and you read it closely, you'll see that many of the items are mix and match. And there may be 30 or 40 items listed on there, but potatoes, sweet potatoes. Okay, so there's a sweet potato hash. There's a baked sweet potato. There's a sweet potato with onions. There's a sweet potato that's mixed into a salad. There's so many other ways that you can use these things. So doing a weekly meal plan is another way to save money. The whole wheat dinner, whole wheat spaghetti and meatballs, brown rice, a burrito bowl. Now that someone has discovered the bowl, again, being a Southern gal from Mississippi, my grandmother didn't throw away anything. So we were using bowls long before you all probably knew about bowls. We were using them out of necessity because she didn't throw anything away. A little bit of green beans, a little bit of black eyed peas, a little bit of rice, and it all went in a bowl. So now I don't know what's the big deal that everybody's into the bowls right now. I've been using bowls forever. So that's one of the things that you can also do when you do this meal plan. Think of items that hold up, that will last for a while, and just turn it into a bowl, turn it into a hash or something. Sweet potatoes can be done in so many different ways. I baked one tonight. As I said, I'm going to slice it, but I'm also going to take it and put it in my salad. And another thing that I'll do is to make sweet potato straws. You know, while the sweet potatoes, once the sweet potatoes, you use something really thin, the julienne, and they are hard and they're dry. You can take them and top them with your salad. So all of the things on here, think about mixing and matching and thinking about, again, using what you have in your pantry, in your refrigerator, in your freezer. So weekly meal plan is a wonderful way to eat healthy and to save money. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank
Take
you.
care.